with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, April 2nd, 2026. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Rana Dasgupta, author of After Nations, The Making and Unmaking of a World Order. Also on the program, oil prices surge after Trump's address to the nation confirms that the war in Iran will continue, but also that we've achieved victory, and also that it's not a war. Because that would be illegal. Although, he has had no accountability for anything, so just gets more and more unhinged. He's threatening to stop all Ukraine aid unless European countries help him join in on the war in Iran, help him open the Strait of Hormuz.
Cherish the Strait of Hormuz.
U.S.-Israeli strikes hit a medical research center in Tehran. Iran ups its missile attacks on Israel, and the death toll in Lebanon rises to at least 1,300. Iran's Revolutionary Guard begins a recruitment drive to get volunteers to defend the country from a U.S. invasion. Mike Johnson may have caved, signaling the House will support the Senate plan to fund DHS, but not ICE or Border Patrol. Supreme Court oral arguments to end birthright citizenship did not go so well for Trump and Republicans. Trump sat in the audience, apparently, to make direct eye contact, I guess, with the Supreme Court justices, but they still expressed skepticism. And Pam Bondi was his date for these arguments. You know, you put on a brave face when you have reports that say a breakup could be coming. Apparently, he wants to fire her and replace her with EPA head Lee Zeldin.
Lateral move?
Yeah. Democrat in name only, Governor Jared Polis appears to have overturned the sentence of election denier Tina Peters at Trump's behest in Colorado.
Libertarians, everybody.
Isn't he the abundance guy?
Yeah, but he's literally a libertarian. Like,
but so are they. So are they.
Yeah, well, they don't identify that way. Or at least Ezra and Derek.
A liberal. I mean, but like liberals and libertarians, how much are we distinguishing? That's a conversation for another day. The death of Nurul Amin Shah Alam, the nearly blind refugee that Border Patrol agents abandoned at a closed donut shop in the cold, has been ruled a homicide. Coral Springs Vice Mayor Nancy Meteor Bowen, a progressive voice in Florida, was found dead in her home after a suspected killing by her husband. And lastly, Bernie Sanders endorses Claire Valdez in New York's 7th District, joining Zohran Mamdani's endorsement in that key race. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's an Majority Report Thursday. Hello, Matt. Hello, Brian. Hello, audience. Let's get right into it. We pre-recorded this interview with Rana Dasgupta just a few hours ago, and I'm really excited for everybody to listen to it. Fascinating book, and really relevant to current events. Last night, Trump addressed the nation, trying to calm the markets ahead of the 3-day weekend, where it appears like a ground invasion of Iran is imminent. Let's pull up 2 here. We can just give you a preview of how this went. This is a live view of oil prices. Well, I mean live in the middle of his speech. So this is as this is the wrong one. No. Oh no, okay, great. No. Yeah, not live right now. This is as Trump was speaking. It surged to this is now above $112 a barrel.
Yeah, it was I believe a $10 or $13 increase
just from his speech alone.
Yeah.
So it didn't go so well. Because that's literally all he seems to respond to. And he wants to do what he wants to do because he wants to look like the tough guy, but he doesn't want the markets to react negatively. The markets have been operating outside of logic, seemingly, on this front, and taking him at his word for weeks within this 5 weeks of war. But that is changing now because he's consistently lying to the Iranian negotiators, lying in public to try to do what he wants to do with this criminal war in Iran without the consequences that he cares about.
Yeah, I think the taco stuff is looking like it was maybe a miscalculation.
Yes. And this speech was like, hey, the war is over, but it's not a war, and it will be over when we do this operation that I'm previewing. He talked a lot about bombing them. There was, in the introduction to the speech, bragging about the Venezuela operation as quick, lethal, violent, and respected. So
it got rave reviews.
Yeah, right. Did you check the Rotten Tomatoes score on our kidnapping of Maduro? Calling something respected doesn't make it so. Perhaps they view it as a success within their own kind of limited psychopathic worldview. But as we've said, Iran is not Venezuela. Iran is significantly larger. Iran has a long history of resisting U.S. and Western imperialism, and as does the Iranian government. They've lived through the bombing campaign last summer from the Israelis, and with the approval of the United States, for example. He also blamed in his speech Iran for October 7th, says that Iran wants to annihilate Israel. The most standard Zionist talking points possible. He said that there would be no Israel in this speech if he did not get out of the JCPOA that Obama negotiated, which is just like he's a ventriloquist dummy for Netanyahu here. The JCPOA was a complete success, and our intelligence and the assessments of this from third parties, that fact is it's a fact. But we have warmongers and Zionists that want to obscure that. So when Trump got into office after the 2016 election, he ripped it up. And now we've been escalating with Iran ever since. And then apparently Trump is still fascinated with this idea of going into Iran and taking their uranium, which would involve building a runway, sending in extremely expensive special equipment, and would be really risky for U.S. troops because the stockpiles of uranium are in mountains in many ways. Some parts of the stockpile are currently buried under rubble due to U.S. bombing, so we would have to excavate in that area. And it's also material that is protected with layers of concrete and other protective coverings that they would have to break through, then get to the bottom of these silos, safely take the nuclear material out and fly it out, requiring this runway to put the cargo onto the special planes, all while having U.S. troops doing this Mission Impossible thing, and putting them in harm's way in a country that is now trying to get volunteer forces to help defend their homeland. What a shock. Carpet bombing a country, bombing schools, medical facilities, universities, has engendered some sort of nationalism and pride in defending the homeland. Who could have seen it coming? It's almost like bombing them wasn't going to make them more likely to be pro-Israel defenders and people that believe in Western capitalism. But then this morning, Trump tells Reuters that he doesn't really care about the uranium anymore because it's so far underground, because maybe people got to him and said, this is insane.
So, I mean, very clearly they were like, he was sold on a Venezuela-style, James Bond-style mission and thought it'd be, well, you can do it once, do it again. Going to get that uranium, which they haven't really been tracking very closely. There's a story like a couple weeks ago that they barely, like, kind of forgot about it. But now it's like, this would take weeks. This would take like thousands of people on the ground within Iran. They would just be sitting ducks. So, you know, he could go for it still. I still don't know which way, if I had to bet on one of the illegal betting services. But it would be like a huge problem if they try it.
The bet that we've been having on the show is that it's going to be over the long weekend, Good Friday. Tomorrow it's closed, the markets. And it's going to be some sort of Christian nationalist Easter theme.
Yeah, my bet is Operation Resurrection.
Ooh, okay. All right. If they go for the uranium, perhaps there's an Easter egg hunt involved, but I would say that doesn't involve enough implied crusade stuff for Pete Hegseth and the bloodthirsty Christian nationalists that populate this administration. Here is part of this address from Trump in which he is bragging about being an absolute savage, speaking about the war crimes that he wants to continue to inflict upon the Iranian people.
What was coming? They've never imagined it. Remember, because of our drill baby drill program, America has plenty of gas. We have so much gas.
This is part, no, wrong part. Sorry, part two. Part two. Oh, part two. Yes. Drill baby. But that part was funny when he said, we have plenty of gas.
So much gas. He's not lying.
You have
yes.
Plenty of gas, sir. We've heard about all of this before.
Ask Susie about it.
Yeah. Or anyone within a 1 mile radius.
Are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time
I'm sorry. Just to pause for a second. What were our objectives? I just want to list them out because they didn't really say. Regime change was a purported objective. And then he says that we achieved it already. Oh, by killing the elderly father and having his son be in charge. Technically, there have been changes within the regime, but does that constitute regime change? No. The Iranian people have not risen up against the government, which was one of the other objectives that he said they wanted to achieve. The nuclear program has not been destroyed, even though they said last summer it had been. Then they claimed that was the objective this time, to destroy it. And the Strait of Hormuz has been perhaps indelibly pushed in the direction of Iran's sovereignty and leverage, where it's quite possible that going forward, they exert essentially taxes on ships that go through there, which is a objectively worse outcome for Western interests. So also the Stone Age is plural. Them and negotiating them, but we want to destroy them so that they have no modern society. That's the two things that he said back to back.
On key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival.
Okay, just pause really quickly. The Israelis did hit the oil fields. We spoke about that within the first week or so of this illegal criminal war. It was such a devastating attack that it is likely to remain in the soil and waterways in Iran for decades to come, causing cancer and other health issues.
It's a war crime to attack civilian infrastructure.
Well, he's bragging about, I mean, talking about going after their domestic energy capacity.
I mean, to hear people talk about our allies and stuff like this, like these are sort of things where if Putin did it, we would rightly call it a war crime. And instead, we act like, well, I guess. Well, actually, our president is just bragging about it, so it's not like we're even having a pretense about it anymore.
I mean, but this is where our complicity in Israel's genocide has led us to this moment.
It's ripped the fabric of international relations apart.
No consequences for genocide means why would Trump anticipate any consequences for bombing civilian infrastructure like this? It's the unraveling of any kind of world order.
But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment.
Rapists speak.
Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force.
Reopen the Strait of Hormuz, then.
Yeah, then do it. Then stop begging Europe.
Nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none. It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months and 28 days. We are in this military operation, so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days.
Okay, so I just want to, first of all,
is there a word limit on this speech that he had to hit?
They're all writing ChatGPT, their speeches in ChatGPT. List the length of other wars to make our not war look so much less time-consuming than the other. And Matt, the reason I wanted to play that part is because you've been on this. The whole, no forever wars thing. Yeah. Enough. And no wars of choice. No offensive wars. Because when you hear Democrats say no forever wars, what does that mean? It's literally what he just listed there. Hey, these other wars were really long and costly. This one that involves a litany of war crimes and will be devastating to the Iranian people and probably also to the ground troops and to the world at large. That's okay, I guess, if it's a short military conflict. It aids what we've spoken about, how the executive branch has entirely taken over the wartime authority that Congress is supposed to have when you say that limited wars in their scope are allowable because it just feeds into the hands of more unilateral action by the executive.
It's a coupon for the military-industrial complex that it will cash every time you say that, because what the real problem is that we over-prepare for war in this country, and we should be addressing other things like daycare, for instance. And instead, for our entire lives, we've just been giving more and more money to the Pentagon, and they need to burn it somehow. And every once in a while, it's nice to fire off some missiles at a country and get everybody's defense contractor stocks up. But we shouldn't be doing any of these wars at all. We way overuse our military, and look where it's got us.
And you mentioned daycare, you mentioned childcare. To top it off, this was before the address last night. Trump here is speaking extemporaneously, and he says more of what's his true thoughts are. And as he degrades, it's interesting to see him just say exactly what his motivations are explicitly. As he's declining and as there are no consequences for his actions. This is what narcissists do as well. Like, they like to give you little breadcrumbs as to what their thinking is, but Trump's becoming even more and more undisciplined about this. And every Democratic candidate should have this clip in one of their ads in the general election.
Because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up. But it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing: military protection.
So Trump ran on something called America First and No New Wars. We all knew he was lying, if you were paying any attention.
Dave Smith didn't. They found out now.
Yeah. I would love to see him react to this clip. He's literally saying, he's giving it away. We cannot pay for daycare. We cannot pay for childcare. We cannot pay for healthcare. They're trying to further gut healthcare to pay for the war in Iran even more than they did previously with the one big ugly ass bill where they kicked tens of millions of Americans off their healthcare, raised premiums, doubled them to pay for tax cuts for the rich. Now let's double dip back into your healthcare and cut more from that to pay for this war in Iran, which is America First, apparently. This is one of the greatest. Trump is a scam artist, and he's scammed the American public for a decade at this point. But this might be his greatest scam.
It's a Capone-like mafia hit, which this on the entire world, because we didn't play this. Well, maybe we'll play in the fun half, but where he's like, we don't really get any oil from the Strait of Hormuz, so we don't really care. If you want it open so bad, because, we got it closed, you should go fix it. But in the meantime, you can buy from us. That's like Al Capone going to a rival moonshine dealer, smashing up all their bottles and going to their clients and saying, hey, you need some liquor for your speakeasy? That's just what's happening. He is a gangster on the world level.
Yep. We've gotten to this point not in a vacuum, not by the actions of one individual or one individual political party. The tactics of our colonial outposts in the Middle East have now been fully and unapologetically adopted by the state that gave birth to its client state. We're doing war crimes and bragging about it and acting as if that's strength, and showing how completely divorced public will is right now from the actions of our supposed democracy. I think, when we talk about how it's a myth that people don't vote on foreign policy, this is going to be an example of that, because people do want to see a government that is responsive to mass public sentiment. And whether it was Biden committing genocide in spite of how his party was reacting, or even running for re-election in spite of what people wanted, and whether it's Trump here, doesn't matter that at the outset of this war in Iran, it's the most unpopular war in the modern era. We're still going to pursue this because it's largely irrelevant at this point what people think. We are a country that has completely been taken over by the explosion of dark money since Citizens United in 2010, insulating our government from public opinion and public will. And the consequences of that are deadly.
It's going to hurt that we've geared so much of our economy towards just killing, as the Palantir guy said, like we're the best at killing. That's not much to offer the world. We used to offer them much more. Now I mean, look, we still lead culturally. There's a lot of media and entertainment that we do in this country, and still do make some good things. But also, I don't know that our tech exports are really that much to hang our hat on for the future either. It'd be nice to be making, you know, the future electric vehicle, or being really good at making high-speed trains, or like, you know, it's depressing that all we do is as Trump said, is fight wars.
In a moment, you will hear my conversation with Rana Dasgupta, but first, a word from one of our sponsors. This episode of The Majority Report is brought to you by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first bake-from-frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, seasonal pastries, and fresh pastas. Unlike many store-bought options, Wild Grain uses simple ingredients you can pronounce and a slow fermentation process that can be easier on your belly and rich in nutrients and antioxidants. There's no preservatives and no shortcuts. Plus, all items conveniently bake in 25 minutes or less with no thawing required. Wild Grain's boxes are fully customizable. In addition to their variety box, they have a gluten-free box, vegan box, and a new protein box. And I was a hit in my household using bringing in this Wild Grain and cooking, or baking, I should say, some great stuff. I started with those dang chocolate chip cookies, which phenomenal. The kind that came out both like a little bit crispy but soft in the middle. I mean, Brian's shaking his head right now. I am getting The Office all hungry. My stomach's going to be grumbling sooner than 2:30 today, potentially, because I'm talking about all this good stuff. But gosh, the croissants are amazing as well. And they have a sourdough that was phenomenal that I had a few weeks ago. It's great because it comes prepackaged. You have it in your freezer. You just heat up your oven and you're good to go. And you know that, again, they use ingredients that are easier on your belly and they have antioxidants in it, no preservatives. So you know that if you're indulging in these kinds of warm breads and pastries and cookies and such, that it's not going to be bad for you as well. Imagine having fresh bakery quality bread, pastries, and pasta at home without any trips to the store. And don't just take my word for it. They have over 40,000 five-star reviews and have been voted the best food subscription box by USA Today for 3 years in a row. For a limited time, Wild Grain is offering you $30 off your first box plus free croissants for life when you go to wildgrain.com/majority to start your subscription today. That's $30 off your first box and free croissants for life when you go to wildgrain.com/majority, or you can use the promo code majority at checkout. Link in the video and episode descriptions and at majority.fm. Get $30 off your first box and free croissants in every box. Go to wildgrain.com/majority to start your subscription. Quick break, and when we come back, you will hear my conversation with Rana Dasgupta. We are back, and we are joined now by Rana Dasgupta, essayist and author, including of his new book, After Nations, The Making and Unmaking of a World Order. Rana, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
This book is fascinating. I'd really encourage people to pre-order it. I know it's coming out in a few weeks. It's so relevant to this current moment because as we're living through this kind of rise of nationalism, particularly right-wing nationalism within like a European and American context, you could also describe this period as the death of liberalism to a degree. But your book takes the time to kind of denaturalize, if you will, the concept of the nation state, meaning just unpacking how the nation state became this dominant form of political organization really in the 20th century. So let's begin there. Maybe 1900, comparing how many nation states existed then to where we are right now.
Yeah, I think that is a good place to start because, you know, our news media, our very short term, it's not just the news media, it's also indeed our education even. The last few decades weigh very, very large in our conversations. And so we don't often reflect much on how recent are all the structures that we live with today. So as you say, there were in 1900, somewhere around 50 sovereign states. It's difficult to count them exactly because there are some that are a bit ambiguous, but somewhere in that region. Compared to 193 seats in the UN today, plus a few other territories. So the number of sovereign territories has pretty much quadrupled in that time. Of course, there were two big waves of it. One was the end of the European empires, which produced about 100 new countries. And then there was another big wave after 1989 when a lot of states were made independent from the Soviet Union. And so we have, and that's of course only 30 years ago. So the situation of having a globe which is totally covered by a mosaic of sovereign nation states is a very recent phenomenon. And my book started, I started thinking about it when Trump was elected for the first time, when Brexit had just happened, and when there was a lot of shock in various countries about changes, big changes that seemed to be happening within states and between them. And so I thought I'd, go a bit further back in history and try and work out how shocking, in fact, this was.
So you go back to even in the beginning of your book, France in particular, having the nation state having some of its roots in religion as well, the theocratic origin of the nation state. Let's go to your first chapter and trace it back even to then.
Yeah, I wanted to start with religion because one of the shocks that we were all having at the time that I started writing this was, and this includes lots of other countries. I was spending a lot of time in India, where Prime Minister Modi was elected in 2014 and was pursuing a clearly non-secular idea of a state that had been famously secular since independence. France was panicked by the rise of the far right, which at that point was proposing a sort of union of defenders of Christendom, seeing Putin, Trump, and Marine Le Pen as the three sort of vanguard members of that union. I felt, as I started looking at this history of religion, that it wasn't actually surprising that as liberalism began to crumble, or lots of people felt that it was a hoax or it was a conspiracy of elites, that religion would rush in to that vacuum. Because if you look back at the long history of the nation state, theology has always played a very important part. So you talk about France, the sort of opening gambit of the book is the moment when the King of France in the 13th century bought the crown of thorns that was supposed to have sat on Christ's head as he was crucified, in order to boost his own political and spiritual authority. And that crown he put on his own head, literally taking the crown of heaven and putting it on the King of France's head, and thereby giving France a sort of mystical, theological authority akin to the church or anything else. And that has not disappeared over the centuries. That's my argument. It's not disappeared over the centuries. It's just been institutionalized into the state. But at its foundations, there are very powerful theological energies still in the state.
And
that's what nationalism is all about, to some extent.
And the exclusionary nature of it, going back to the kind of theological roots of, say, excluding Jews and women from this, or even to add to that, the idea that France, the crown being put on the head of state in France's head, attempting to fuse or perhaps this is later on, but like the rifts between the Protestants and the Catholics. It's like, okay, you are a part of this national identity under Christianity, but there's always still that exclusionary nature in this premise. Jews, women, etc., not a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we can contrast this with what went before. So if we think back to the Roman Empire, so France is just one of a number of countries that come out of tribal conquests emerging from the collapse of the Roman Empire. So the Roman emperor, who by that time was a Christian emperor, proposed himself as a universal emperor, ruling over countless nationalities and language and ethnic groups and indeed religions. The problem of these nascent states was that they were clearly not universal entities. They were tribal entities, but they wanted to have the same kind of authority. So they had to work a sort of trick of borrowing God for their own little territory. And that territory was bounded, and it was in conflict and competition with other similar territories around. So exclusion was also there at the heart of the identity of the state, that not everybody can be a member of this state. It's not an empire. It is bound to a certain religion or a certain ethnic group or whatever it might be. So that's another thing that's in the sort of foundations of states, that the foreigner is a very big character in the state. And the internal foreigner, the person who's a suspect citizen, Jews played that role for a very long time in many European states, risks potentially enormous danger because the state can at any point whip up violence and anger towards those who don't have a legitimate claim on citizenship.
And perhaps we can look at Britain for a second, because I do want to take us to the modern context, but so much of this history is so rich. Just the idea of, say, like the joint stock companies and the rise of like a sort of entity that is somewhat sovereign, but working with for capital interests alongside the nation state. Working hand in hand, in the modern context, we've now seen kind of the global elite supersede the nation state, and I do want to get there. But when we look at the origins of this kind of structure, take us to the British Empire, the East India Company, etc.
Yes, so Britain is the first capitalist superpower, the first country. I mean, there have really only been two, Britain and the United States. There were very powerful capitalist states before that, Netherlands, Spain, etc. And they hosted sort of major financial centers, but they never did what Britain did, which was to supply a currency to the world and to try and lay a net of British law also across the world, which is essentially the drive behind the British Empire. But the very interesting part of this is that in the early stages, it was not the British government, but a joint stock corporation, the East India Company, that primarily drove this. So the East India Company had its own armies and navies, its own ambassadors, and it governed large areas, let's say, of India, for instance. And what's fascinating when you get into that history is that the East India Company is essentially one of the most dynamic forces on the planet. It is expanding the capitalist system. It is creating vast and very savage economies of slaves and trade and conquest. But it is producing profits and value on such a level, capitalist value that can be traded, that by the 18th century, the British state is totally mortgaged to the East India Company. The heart of 25% of all MPs were stockholders in the East India Company. So British policy was essentially kind of bound to company policy. But even more than that, the country itself, its entire financial system was underwritten both by East India Company profits and East India Company share value. So the country was following behind the corporation rather than the other way around. And as I'd explain in the book, this meets a crisis in the 1760s and 70s when basically Parliament, when the company kind of crashes because of things going on in India, and the government has a choice whether to bail out the company and risk the country, or vice versa. And it decides to do that, to save the company rather than the state. And the result, through lots of complex tax innovations, is American independence. So, it's extraordinary that the state would risk its American colony rather than allow the company to go bankrupt. And of course, I'm going to draw parallels between that and Silicon Valley today.
I'm so eager to get to those parallels. I'm trying to kind of follow a sort of timeline to a degree, but there's so much to chew on. Perhaps we can then move to the history that we touched on at the beginning of our conversation, which is where we were at the beginning of the 20th century with nation states, with around fewer than 50 nation states. But then you have, of course, the two world wars. You have the fall of the Ottoman Empire. You have the carving up of the Middle East via Sykes-Picot, the Balfour Declaration, but the creation of these kind of newer nation states that are right now having their sovereignty completely disregarded, but because of Israel's expansion, and then of course the post-World War II order that cemented this reality. What role did nation states play in both of these two world wars, and where did it set? And then we can move, I guess, to the back half of the 20th century as nation states kind of play a role in the expansion of the capitalist system as America takes over the globe as the capitalist empire.
Yeah, this is where we get into the crucial significance of America and the crucial importance of America, not just in building a powerful state, but in building a world order. By 1900, British hegemony is clearly in decline. Britain is not the power it once was, and it's faced increasingly by very powerful competitors. America, which already has greater industrial capacity than Britain at that time, but also Germany, which is more technologically advanced, and Japan, which is increasingly ambitious, territorially ambitious in Asia, where Britain, of course, has immense territory itself. So Britain is in decline, and we enter this period from 1914 to 1945, where there's 30 years of immense turbulence in the capitalist system and in competing imperial blocs to essentially replace Britain. And of course, the Second World War is that sort of final conflagration. And the Second World War ends with a situation that is so much more extreme than 1815, when Britain takes over from France, because you have Germany and Japan totally destroyed as economic powers, even as simple physical entities. Most of the rest of Europe is also destroyed. And so America enters the post-war period with something like 50% of global industrial capacity, and the ability essentially to draw on the back of an envelope the kind of world it wants, which is exactly what it does. And the world it wants is a new kind of empire. It is an empire whose creation will require the dismantling of the European empires and the breaking up of the world into a set of sovereign states, all of which will trade with each other in a global capitalist system, from which America will draw immense rents and profits, and to which America will supply various hegemonic services, keeping the seas open, keeping the free trade system afloat, supplying a stable currency, and indeed administering the system through various arm's length organizations like the World Bank, the IMF, even the United Nations. That system is finally fully realized.
NATO is another example too, increasing Europe's military dependence on America. Yeah.
the Marshall Plan, rebuilding Europe, all that stuff. That system becomes mature in the 1990s when the Soviet Union disappears from the picture, and you have the sort of the Washington Consensus and the ability finally of America to dictate the terms on which global trade happens and to implement a global property regime through the World Trade Organization and all that. So the nation-state system in its mature form is very much an American creation. And America has always had an exceptional position in it, setting international laws that it alone did not have to abide by. So America was always exceptional in being able to wage any kind of war it wanted, impose, dictators on foreign countries and all that sort of thing. But only America could do that sort of thing, and it would be a powerful policeman campaigning against other powers that tried to break the rules of the international system. And that is what is disappearing now. America, like Britain, is losing its hegemonic position, is no longer able to, guarantee the supply of energy, guarantee the supremacy of the dollar, keep the seas open, even very topically. And so that's why we're again entering this period of turbulent competition between other empires that would like to take away from America some of the powers it's had.
What would you describe the promulgation of nation states in the very kind of American framework that places us as Americans as supreme, that we're now seeing a decline? Would you argue that that is an effort, that was an effort by the United States to sort of maintain the skeleton of a colonial world while giving kind of the appearance of some sort of even-handedness? Or is that too simple of a way to describe what the vision was?
No, I think the vision, it's very interesting when you look at the actual individuals who designed this system. And I look in detail at the Dulles brothers, for instance. Many of these people had come out of finance. They were bankers. They were very wealthy. They were directors of companies. American corporate CEOs had a very large, and Wall Street had a huge say in the design of what I'll call the American empire. And absolutely, there was a nostalgia for Britain. They wanted to essentially to maintain a lot of the dynamics of the British Empire, to maintain, very importantly, Western superiority in the capitalist system, whilst not wishing to have any of the ambiguous rights and responsibilities of actually administering large parts of the world, which was very expensive and was clearly not possible in the climate following World War II. So I think both in its intention and in its actuality, yes, this regime continued in a more virtual and more modern, technologically heavy way, many of the principles on which the European empires have been set up. And we can see this in a very interesting statistic described by Branko Milanovic in his work on global inequality, where he describes the fact that essentially until the 19th century, being rich in Africa or Asia was pretty much the same as being rich in the West. And what happened under the influence of the European empires was a massive and very rapid divergence, so that by the beginning of the 20th century, it was better to be lower middle class or even poor in the West than rich in much of the rest of the world, because of the extraordinary affluence of the society and power of the society you were part of. And that line of divergence in wealth between different regions of the world did not stop in 1945. Its peak was actually in 1974. So there's unfortunately a correlation between everything we think of as best in the West, meaning democracy and equality and all those kinds of things. Those things hit their peak precisely at the moment when the world was most unequal and the West was The gap in wealth was the greatest between the West and everywhere else. So yes, I think the system that the Americans set up after 1974, after 1945, perpetuated and intensified, actually in a more effective way, what the European empires had done.
It's so just, I mean, chilling, prescient, important to understand the limits of, if you're somebody that cares about the world and not just the nation, the limits of democracy when living in true democracy, when you're living in the imperial core under capitalism. You know, we see this very acutely with Israel. Israel has a so-called democracy within their, cloistered colony. But of course, the people that they rule over and extract from in Palestine have no democracy. I mean, the U.S. is to the global South as Israel is to Palestine, to use an SAT formulation of logic here.
Yeah, I think the moment we're in now is unfortunately very different as far as the U.S. is concerned. I mean, I think the U.S. the system that we're talking about was built very much on the supremacy of oil and the supremacy of an industrial system. There's a particular kind of energy and a particular kind of economic structure to the.
And just to interject for a second, I mean, you mentioned the Dulles brothers. Of course, oil and the explosion of kind of capitalists out west, this new rush of money, the Bushes, I mean, they were so embedded in the United States' covert operations and in the post-World War II order of installing the despots that you describe to benefit the oil and gas conglomerates in the United States. I mean, that is an industry that, of course, you can't tell the story without.
Absolutely. And in fact, I mean, it's not even a secret. It is actually America's official role is to supply cheap energy to the world and keep oil flowing into the capitalist system. And it's at moments of crisis, and the Iraq War was one of those, when you see what really counts, what is really at stake in the US. Is it the spread of democracy and freedom and all that sort of thing, or is it something else? So often behind America's wars, and wars for legal reasons are always couched in certain terms, that there's a threat from another party or whatever it might be, or a threat to human rights or threat to democracy. But wars are usually fought over other things, which are more existential, such as currency and energy. But the point here is that the offshoring of America's industrial production, and then later on a sort of move to an AI economy where human labor becomes less and less important to the production of value, completely changes the relationship of America to the rest of the world and to its own population. Because a major reason why all the Western countries granted democracy to citizens who'd often been fighting for it for a century and a half, they conceded it because finally those citizens were very, very valuable to them as industrial workers. And granting those people some kind of political voice and making sure that the industrial system could function without massive breakdowns and strikes and class conflict was very, very important. And so those countries suddenly granted something that they've been withholding for a long time, and self-consciously built up a working class, free public education and healthcare and all those things that made the working class feel that they had a stake in the system and made them feel secure and all that sort of thing. So there's a sort of late 20th century system where a lot of these things are linked in a virtuous circle of industry and democracy, and the West being much richer than the rest of the world because it's monopolizing the industrial system. And none of that really holds today. So all those things are under pressure. There's a lot of labor in countries like the US, which is not really important and is losing value to other parts of the world because it's in direct competition with Asia. And again, the population doesn't have the same strategic significance, and democracy, I mean, we are looking at a much more oligarchic structure to the U.S. economy, and
Right.
democracy is under threat and is even, I would say, being withdrawn in various devious ways.
So, with the countries like the United States needing workers a lot less, with the outsourcing of all of this to other countries, with globalization, we see the rights of folks within the imperial core, within the United States, in this context, diminishing, because as their importance as workers diminishes, so do their importance, I guess, in terms of buying into this system. I guess we could turn back to the role of nation states, because they served a purpose for a few decades, for the promulgation of the U.S. as the world cop, the hegemon, etc. But when did nation states, or did they ever, become a threat to, say, the capitalist order? Is there a situation where nationalism has bumped up against capitalism? Where are we at today?
Well, I see the nation state essentially, to be crude, I see it as the political apparatus of the capitalist system. And that has lots of implications. The capitalist system is very dynamic. It's not the same from one decade to the next. And so if we define the nation state in that way, we should be skeptical about the nation state being a stable unit, too. It may not be the same in 1975 as in 2050. And that may especially be the case in terms of things like democracy. So democracy might be very useful to the sort of partnership of politics and capitalism at one point. Democracy might actually be the sort of energizing tool that allows capital and labor to work together in the best way. But at another point in time, that convergence of interests might completely have broken down. So I see us as in a moment where the sort of interests of the capitalist system and therefore of the nation state diverging from the interests of citizens. And I think Trump is very interesting in this respect because in whatever way his mind works, he seems to have quite a profound instinct for the particular pressures on the United States today, and he's almost like one of these guys who comes in and strips down a corporation and turns it around for greater profit. Trump is not only stripping down a lot of the things domestically, but stripping down a lot of America's previous historical commitments internationally. I was just in Peru, where the withdrawal of USAID services has meant a complete arrest of a lot of the work going on to try and convert farmers from cocaine to other crops in an attempt to sort of diminish the power of non-state actors in that country. So America has, as the hegemonic power, has not only been global policeman and all that sort of thing, it has actually physically held other states together and sustained them because it has had a fundamental commitment to states as states. They shouldn't collapse. This is our system, and we need to sort of, if there are states in trouble, we need to give them expertise or arms or whatever they need. Trump has sort of pulled out of a lot of those kinds of historic responsibilities. Both Britain and America, when they were capitalist superpowers, they would charge very low tariffs on other countries' imports. even if those countries charge high tariffs on theirs, simply because they were the superpower and they had to advertise the virtues of free trade, even if other people didn't fall in line. And that was a cost that they would bear as superpowers, just like NATO and all these other things. So Trump is pulling out a lot of those things and, in a way, leading the transition from America as hegemon to America as a regional empire with the same sort of strategies and indeed moral status as Russia and China and its other competitors. So, whether he's a genius or he's a fool, I think he has very, very single-mindedly decided that no longer is America going to play the role that it has until now, with all the consequences we can see around us.
Yes, except, I mean, in terms of militarism, I think, that Trump has this. I believe that he acknowledges, at least on the surface level, the fact that we are moving towards a multipolarity, and he will say rhetorically, this is the Donroe Doctrine, we're going to focus on domination in the Western Hemisphere. And yet, what we're seeing in Iran right now, this war, is still very much within the framework that you describe. It's almost it's accelerating, I would say, multipolarity, because it's been done so stupidly and barbarically and without planning. So I'm a little hesitant to assign some intentionality to it. It's like he has a recognition of the reality, as opposed to Biden, trying to fortify NATO, turn back the clock. Trump understands where we are, but his attempt to reify American power is backfiring. It's accelerating the dynamic you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there are much better people than me to analyze American military strategy today and all those sorts of things. But all I would say is that, once again, Trump, like previous American presidents, has to give a sort of legalistic account of his reasons for declaring a war like this. But his actual reasons might be quite different, and I don't know what the discussions are going on around him. But I suspect that much more than is discussed in the media today, his motives for a lot of what he's been doing, a lot of what he declared with respect to Greenland, a lot of what he's done in Venezuela and in Iran, have to do with an attempt to seize a window of opportunity to improve the U.S.'s competitive situation with China. I think that the U.S. faces an existential threat from China, which it does not face from anyone else. And that existential threat is that China has a plausible currency alternative to the U.S. dollar. And China is also using energy politics to create coalitions around the world that don't involve the United States. And it's able to do that partly because it has a near monopoly on rare earth minerals, or at least on the processing of those minerals. So Greenland, for instance, I read that very much as an attempt to sort of quickly make up for this deficiency as vis-a-vis China. And as you know, as Trump keeps telling us, America is quite self-sufficient in terms of oil, but China depends massively on cheap oil to keep producing, and most of that oil comes from the Middle East. So I wonder if there are not intra-imperial competitive motives behind all this. But as you say, I mean, there is a long-standing American and before that British desire to prevent a powerful state from emerging in the Middle East. This is a very, very long tradition, and I think the creation of the state of Israel is part of that attempt to essentially keep the Middle East chaotic and conflicted. And to some extent, I think Trump, and maybe some of his colleagues, have bought into their own fantasies that the Middle East is extremely weak and can't do anything for itself, and that wars like this will be won very easily. And yes, I agree with you that potentially he is actually creating the opposite effect of what he intended, dramatically enhancing Russia and China's situation in the world vis-a-vis America, and indeed throwing lots of other countries into their arms, because the US is proving so unreliable and so sort of difficult to deal with, that alliances with Russia and China are seeming much more attractive to many other states.
Just one or two more questions here, just because I want to return to the East India Company comparison to the tech industry and AI industry completely capturing our government here. China's competitiveness is also in its state capacity, is in its ability to have long-term planning, in its ability to direct resources in a way that the United States no longer can, because of a investor class that is taking and gobbling up historic amounts of value for themselves. Efficiency be damned. So when you look at the tech industry and you compare it to the East India Company kind of running the show for the empire, where do you see those parallels, and how do you see that as it fits within the context of competition with China?
Well, the East India Company was essentially doing a lot of the British state's work for it in maintaining its competitive advantage against France, especially. Other countries too, but especially France. France had its own similar trading companies, but they were nothing like on the scale of the East India Company. And Britain had a much more developed stock market and debt market. So it was able to fund the expansion of the company much more efficiently. And the East India Company also plugged into one of the most dynamic industries in the world, which was India's textile industry. This had the effect that the British economy, the elites made their money essentially from outside the British Isles. It was land in the Americas and trade in Asia that was basically putting money in the pockets of elites and giving them a greater and greater share of the British economy every year, not what British people produced. And so the political apparatus was designed really to protect that company and joint stock companies in general, and elite interests all over the world, rather than give British citizens a voice. In fact, it would have been impossible to give British citizens a voice. Silicon Valley is performing a similar role for America today. Silicon Valley spends much more money than the US government on scientific research, which is a reversal of 50 years ago, when the US government was by far the biggest funder of scientific research in the world. It is Silicon Valley that is producing most of the not only of the technological edge that America has, but also a lot of the dollar inflow, since they account for such a large amount of stock market value. And indeed, pulling rents from users all over the world, and increasingly accumulating data about citizens of countries all over the world. So Silicon Valley is this enormous asset to American power, which is the only thing really that can stave off an incredibly effective, as you say, state-run program of technological development in China. So inevitably, the state must give concessions to Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, the Silicon Valley CEOs were all there at Trump's inauguration, which was an advertisement of a kind of alliance between Washington and Silicon Valley that's now very apparent. We saw Musk's involvement with the early administration. It's quite clear that the sort of power of social media, of Tesla, of of private space exploration, of Amazon as a sort of a new style East India Company, which is essentially taking rents out of the entire, out of every transaction on the planet almost. America is disproportionately reliant on these firms. But the difference between these firms and, let's say, General Motors and AT&T of the previous era is that they don't necessarily contribute to state power in the same way. They compete with it in some ways. Mm-hmm. So there are lots of, well-meaning U.S. officials who would like to preserve a certain integrity to American democracy, who can see that Silicon Valley is able to basically hijack American democracy, automate a lot of opinion, produce enormous confusion around what is the truth and what people actually believe. And Donald Trump has enjoyed that chaos and confusion a lot. So I think the parallels are really to do with a sort of a disproportionate political power, which is not of the same sort of the car companies and steel companies and oil companies, even of a different era, where antitrust regulation could break them up and create competition between them. It's almost in the nature of Silicon Valley to create monopolies which are meaningless if they're broken up. If you break up Google into 12 different companies, it's not very useful to the users anymore. Users depend on that monopoly it's supposed to be a universal data system. So those companies, they have a monopolistic power. They've devoted all their immense political energy to making sure they are not regulated, and that they maintain a lot of their legal freedoms. And they have ideas about political organization, about economic organization, and even about the nature of human life. That is quite different to what the U.S. state has promoted for quite a long time. And I'm not just talking about the private opinions of many people in Silicon Valley, which, however, I think are quite significant. Some of them are very radical, and I don't think it's insignificant that some of these individuals hold views that are massively at odds with what most Americans believe and what the state officially believes. But I think it's also in the nature of these companies to start becoming geopolitical actors in their own right, and holding states increasingly to ransom, because they can run states, they run the military, they run the bureaucracy, and they can produce outcomes of elections. So clearly, they will only have be able to extract more and more concessions from states in the future.
Well, the book is phenomenal. After Nations, the Making and Unmaking of a World Order. There's so much that we didn't even get to touch on, but I was thrilled to have you on today. Rana Dasgupta, we will put a link to After Nations down below wherever people are listening to or watching this episode. Rana, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for a great conversation.
We are back. Hope you enjoyed that interview. We now have breaking news. And I would use that dang sound drop if I had remembered to fix my soundboard. Thank you. Well, maybe we'll let Fox News take it away for us. Pam Bondi is out. What is her next position? We do not know. Perhaps ambassador to Atlantis.
Is there a position?
Not the fun one in the Bahamas.
Is there a position at the Shield of the Americas opening up?
Vice ambassador. She'll have to serve under Christine Elm. He's just sending the women there.
I was gonna say the Shield of Fired Broads.
Fired mouthy broads.
Right.
Here's Fox News with the breaking news for us.
Kaylee, I just got off the phone with President Trump. We have a big scoop. Pam Bondi will soon leave her job as the Attorney General. she is going to get a different job within the administration. It doesn't sound like there is any bad blood between her and President Trump, but it does seem like they want her to go and do something else. She will be replaced.
Hey, let's take that again.
It does seem like I don't
Tell her
want
to go
you
do something else.
in that. Yeah, right.
Not firing you.
Can you
but-
make me a sandwich or something? Ambassador to Boar's Head is her next gig.
It doesn't sound like there is any bad blood between her and
Sure.
but it does seem like they want her to go and do something else. And in an interim role, she will be replaced by Todd Blanche, who is currently her deputy at the Justice Department. So it doesn't sound like Blanche is being elevated long term to the Attorney General. There might be somebody else that the president wants to go in there. But President Trump soon will announce to the entire world that it is the end of Pam Bondi's time as the Attorney General. He still thinks that she is a great person and that she did a good job.
This a breakup?
He still wants her in the fold because she will still be an important part of the administration, he tells me. But no
She's got a lot of dirt on me.
Yeah.
Officer of the United States. That, at least for a little while, is going to be.
She's gonna be like, I like how he's keeping them under his control, but with the most humiliating possible non-position position.
I'm actually promoting you
God, if
to
they-
a higher thing than Attorney General, but we don't know what it is yet.
If she had any dignity and wasn't involved in a literal criminal conspiracy to cover up the Epstein files in contravention of the law, then she would, I would imagine, just be like, F this, I'm going to private practice. But I was trying to remember, Trump has fired a few attorney generals at this point. The first was Jeff Sessions. Do you remember why he fired Jeff Sessions? It was because Jeff Sessions refused to recuse himself from the Russia interference investigation that was happening independently in the Justice Department. Like, how far we have fallen. Jeff Sessions looked at Trump like he was the love of his life, that little Keebler elf. And that was what Trump was upset about. Now, Pam Bondi did everything that she could to politicize the DOJ in his behalf, but she wasn't as probably directly obsequious and effective as Todd Blanche as a bully. Like, we saw what Blanche did in going to Ghislaine Maxwell and negotiating her to get to that cushy prison, which, by the way, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City's Jen Shaw just got out of prison and was saying, she scammed a bunch of elderly people, but is trying to take the moral high ground when giving her People interview about her experience with Ghislaine. And she was saying that she felt no remorse seeing the victims on TV, which we knew already. But apparently Trump's upset about her poor handling of the cover-up of the Epstein files. And the other reporting is that he's literally just firing the women now, because Tulsi Gabbard's next. It's apparently already going to happen. They're already floating this.
Yeah, they call her "Do Not Involve," right? The DNI position.
Do not invite.
Do not invite.
Which is somehow worse. Yeah. I mean, so he's upset that the cases against James Comey and Letitia James were dismissed, I guess, and he's upset that the Epstein files cover-up didn't go that well.
He was talking about Levitt maybe doing a bad job for the reason why he's getting all this bad PR too. So maybe she's the motor mouth might be running out of gas.
Yeah. Oh, someone correct me. It's because Sessions did recuse himself. Yeah. That's what I meant to say. I said didn't.
Yeah, I was confused by that.
I hate when my brain does that. I hate when my brain does that. Didn't. But Bondi, R.I.P. She was a good soldier. Trump loved her when she was on his impeachment defense. But prior to that, when she was Florida Attorney General, she basically blocked an investigation into Trump University, and it was after he gave her a $25,000 donation. So
right, and also failed to look at the sweetheart deal that Jeffrey Epstein got for his time when Alex Acosta was the AG of Florida.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's the breaking news, folks. And with that, we're going to wrap up the free part of this program and head into the fun half. And we will say hello to our Fun Half friends, and that includes Brandon Sutton. Brandon, your reaction to this breaking news?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I can't help but feel like it's another one of Trump's unfair HR decisions to blame the failure to cover up the Epstein files on Pam Bondi. If he wanted the Epstein files properly covered up, he should have made sure to kill Epstein when it was Joe Biden's presidency instead of his own, because that's really the set of events that, kind of put this into motion.
Right. What's happening on the discourse, Brandon?
Well, I am back from a little micro vacation, and so we're going to hit the ground running. Honestly, it's going to sound crazy. I think Trump is going to launch his special ground operation on Easter. So I'm preparing myself to be streaming on Easter. But in the prelude to that, I'll have some clips out for you all today over on the YouTube channel, the discourse with Brandon. We are, I think, only 75 followers. I'm just every time we're near a milestone. We're only 75 followers away from 19,000. So it's still not too late to be part of the first 19,000. Or not, it's fine. But either way, you should send me your money.
All right. Hey, Matt Binder.
Hello.
What's happening on your shows?
Leftist Mafia tonight at youtube.com/MattBinder at what time? 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. I forgot what time it was for a second.
All right. And Matt Leck, what's happening with Jacobin and Left Reckoning?
Yeah, a new Jacobin show tomorrow. We're talking about Brazil. And also follow me on Instagram at Matt Leck, where I am fastly approaching 8,000 followers, which is like 2,000 less than I need to be able to post links
for free without having to pay Instagram.
You can for the highest thing, it is $150 a month on Instagram for unlimited links. That's too much money.
Yeah, and it's so amazing how they just stole the Elon model after he started doing
Elon
that.
really broke the seal and let them do that's what the problem is. They all suck. They're all Elons. Elon is just public about sucking, but
exactly
Zuckerberg, and there's actually text, Binder, maybe you've been following this story, but text between Elon and Zuckerberg, and it turns out that the whole challenge to fight thing really truly was political kayfabe, and they're in fact conspiring against things to do business deals.
Zuckerberg reached out to Musk earlier last year when Doge was fully ramping up, and told Elon that he really liked this. Zuckerberg telling Elon via text message that he really liked what Doge was doing, and to let them know how Facebook can help, because they're already making sure to stop and censor anyone who's sharing information about the Doge members. Zuckerberg openly saying that the public employees of Doge who were cutting everybody's programs and stealing their personal data from government systems, all those people should have been able to do so in the shadows, according to Zuckerberg.
Yep. So if I was somebody who credited the Trump era Republicans as being free speech champions, I would probably want to reassess that, but
Probably. All right, folks, with that, we're going to wrap up the free part of this show and head into the fun half. As a reminder, this show relies on your support. Join themajorityreport.com. You can become a member. You can IM the show. We'll take some calls in the fun half. Have some fun with it. Fallopian Tube says, can we get a somber? The Dow is over 50,000 for our fallen soldier.
Oh, yeah, actually, I wanted to play a little bit of this.
The Dow right now is over. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
I just found out you're over 50, so you gotta go.
The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming.
Oh, so good.
I can't believe they got rid of her. I can't believe they got rid of her.
I can't believe it.
There's no bad blood. There's nothing going on. We just wanted to do something else now, okay?
I too will bury her in the back of my golf course when she's dead and gone.
It's very weird watching that. Very weird watching that Fox News segment. They, like Matt said, it sounded like a breakup. I mean, what are you doing reporting on this like this? Can you imagine any other administration, people coming out when someone was fired or leaving their position or resigning or whatever, if they came out and like, oh, but don't worry, the guy or girl resigning and the president, they're still friends. There's still a place for that. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm just not emotionally available right now.
I do think we do have to admit, though, agnostically, she did handle the cover-up very poorly. I don't think there's ever been a cover-up handled as poorly as she handled it. Now, I think that's mostly a commentary on Trump's hiring policies, but it was really terrible. I think everyone agreed to that. Susie Wiles, Bongino, it was the binder thing. Like, the binder thing really sold it for me.
I mean, to be fair, it really felt like they ramped it up because it wasn't a cover up, obviously, in the beginning to them, because they really believed they were going to unveil things, and then they actually took a look after all that, and then went, "Oh shit! Whoops! We actually, this is now a cover up. We didn't realize Trump was in here so much."
Donald Trump's like the guy who doesn't tell his attorneys like everything that might be a problem in the future, and then they get into the evidence and like, oh shit.
Right. I also find it really amusing that Bondi was his date to the Supreme Court birthright citizenship hearing yesterday, which he attended as an intimidation tactic, like staring at the Supreme Court justices, and she apparently came with him. And it's like that last ditch effort right before you got to break up. Like, let's go on one more date. Let's go on one more date to the Supreme Court to see if we can intimidate the justices into participating in our ethnic cleansing campaign. And it didn't go that great, you know? So, time to break up. All right, guys. See you in the fun half.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait. Look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
Yeah, I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered her to tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered her to tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. What? Tour, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered her to tour, sushi, and that's what we call the biz. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Tour, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Tour,
Wow.
Sushi.
I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind.
So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Logic. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Tour.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid.
Had this debate 7,000 times.
A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Tour. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like, I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job.
Tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. Willy Wonka tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. What's that offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. What's that offered a tour?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's a poker with the boys. I think he might be blowing it out of proportion. Real thing. That's a poker with the boys. That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's a poker. Let's go, Joe. Tour? Sushi and poker with the boys.
Take it easy, Dan.
Tour? Sushi and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys. Delusional. Tour?
Deluded.
Sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Sam
Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the majority report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Right.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up! You don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's
No.
one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is the pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Trump Violet tour.
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people, love it.
That's where my heart is, so I wrote my honors thesis about it.
She wrote an honest thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You want to go right with me on foreign policy?
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
One. I wish someone would fly me down to Florida. Sorry, I'm.
Oh, whoa, what were we talking about? Matt's take.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
It's another 44
I want to go to
degree day in
Florida
New York.
too.
I mean, look, honestly, if I get invited to do stuff, for the most part, it's like, is it a warm place? Then I'll say yes. Olivia Nuzzy John says Trump kept calling Qatar Qatar. Qatar.
Which, you know, a guitar is like a guitar keyboard hybrid instrument.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they played in the
Yeah.
80s. Yeah.
Just another piece of nostalgia for him.
Yeah, maybe he just he misses the guitar. I
do
remember
too.
back in the 80s, every band used one.
Remember the saxophone solos? They don't do that anymore.
What happened to Toto?
That's what America was great, when the
Yeah,
guitar
man.
was in every
Yeah.
top 40 song.
And when
Now
I
you're
say
speaking my
Iran, I'm really thinking about the song
Flock of
Iran.
Seagulls.
Flock of Seagulls, Psychedelic Furs. Yeah, let's get into it. I love 80s music. Listen to Depeche Mode.
Orchestral maneuvers in the dark. Okay.
Back when men could be men by being rock stars with a lot of makeup on.
Yeah, you could be Hall or Oates back then. Now you can't even be. You can't
Now you have to just be
even-
trans.
Yeah.
What was it you wanted to say?
We'll start with 6 and 7. We'll get the.
Okay, Gen Z.
Noah from Tampa. Lockheed Martin just had a major data breach and their F-35 source code leaked. Oof, interesting.
Isn't that one of the companies on Iran's list that they released that said they were going to hack?
I didn't know that, no.
I'm
But
pretty sure it is.
Oh no, I feel so attacked.
yeah. Stop.
Iran has the highest approval ratings of anything they pull after it takes out Lockheed Martin and a bunch of AI companies.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to Trump, like the planes are just falling out of the sky themselves. I don't know why they would bother. Like, what? Like, why would they want to steal the code? Like the
Totally.
F-15s, the F-35s, they just, they just fall.
College Board Early High School says, New York City public school teacher here. Union teachers are leading the fight to fix our retirement system. Would love to get somebody on the program who could speak to the situation. Class size reduction was a win, but digital data-driven assessment is killing the humanities. And on the teacher side, the tenure system and DOE administration overall is rife with bureaucratic potholes. We definitely should have someone on to talk about that. So thank you for the thought. Eric from Montana. The damage that Alan Dulles did cannot be overstated. There are a couple of books about the case that Dulles orchestrated JFK's murder because JFK was going to spoil Dulles' regime change in Indonesia to take control of the world's largest gold deposit. Spoiler alert, Dulles succeeded in taking the Indonesian gold. Similar story unfolded around oil, obviously, which explains the Bush family power.
Great book on the Dulles brothers that does go into proximity to people involved in the Kennedy assassination is The Devil's Chessboard, one of the, excellent books, and rest in peace Talbot, David Talbot, I think, who wrote it.
Be Gay Do Crimes says that was a fantastic interview. One I imagine we will look back on years as a marker of where we are now. Thank you. Alex from Germany as Trump. Pam, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, I just got a lot going on. Actually be better for you just to go out, try some new things.
Zane, no amount of debasing yourself is ever enough. Trump will be done with you eventually.
Well, Stephen Miller, I did see some senators going at Stephen Miller. It'd be nice if Miller could get it.
That would be the crown jewel, but I don't think he'll ever let go of Stephen Miller. That's his Roy Cohn. Special Edward Bondi knows too much. Either Trump makes her a Supreme Court justice or he'll have to have her whacked. She knows way too much for them to just cut her loose. Too much information could be too easily compromised. I'm sure she would be interested in the payout too.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are members of a mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is like when
ahead.
people imagine that like members of the military are going to resist the legal order. It's like likely, if they get to that point, they're not gonna, they're not gonna not bomb the boats in the Caribbean. They're gonna just be like good little soldiers.
Exactly. Kowalski from Nebraska. I think the interview today is in the runnings for a best of. You guys have had a lot of home runs already this year. I personally believe that there are figures within the administration that would have preferred a quick victory in Iran, but recognize that chaos is still perfectly in line with the long-term fortress North America strategy. To be clear, it's not something I personally want, but objectively, if you look at the disruptions in the Middle East, this will disproportionately impact China and Europe more than North America. The Pentagon has been working on strategies from the withdrawal of U.S. forces back to the Western Hemisphere due to climate change scenarios, in which we would be sowing chaos on the way out to ensure that we don't have an issue down the line with a great power rival, and then just letting the Eastern Hemisphere burn for a century. It is brutal, and if you were a tech CEO, do you want an EU or Chinese government that will challenge you, or a complicit U.S. government, which will be the last bastion of organized power? Never underestimate the cruelty of the capital class. Exactly, Kowalski. And it's also really notable about that tech lost their collective minds because the EU decided to actually enforce their antitrust laws against them. And it's part of why they were so eager to consolidate behind Trump and were pulling out all the stops, including on the people like Reid Hoffman on the Democratic side, to lock Kamala Harris into firing Lena Khan if she were to win. And obviously we didn't know how that turned out, but I think you're spot on about that.
I mean, it's the same thing as the point Sam makes about the Iraq War. It is like people point out, we didn't really even take the oil, as Trump likes to point out. But it's really just about making sure nobody else can avail of it. That's a competitor to us on the global stage.
Yep. Let's do this really quickly here. So yesterday there were oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court regarding Trump's executive order to overturn part of the 14th Amendment. Can't do that. Birthright citizenship is in the Constitution. There is a process to changing the Constitution. But this is a way they're trying to essentially roll back the clock. In 1857, there was this infamous decision by the Supreme Court called Dred Scott. And there hadn't really been a ton of case law on the notion of citizenship prior to this. The U.S. was a very new country, and it was also expanding rapidly, and they needed people. But the Supreme Court decided in 1957 that black people in general, whether you were free or whether you were enslaved, could never be U.S. citizens. They used racial supremacist arguments about that. But they also used arguments that you'll hear from conservative justices today, including things like original intent. So their arguments in Dred Scott were, in the conclusion they came to in the case, was that the original framers of the Constitution did not intend for black people to be citizens, and so this is how we're going to rule. Does that sound familiar to how the right-wing Supreme Court decides to incur on people's rights today? But then you had a decade later the passage of the 14th Amendment, which was in direct response to Dred Scott, to say that no, if you are born on American soil, you are a citizen. This was also reified in a case in 1898 about U.S. Children born to immigrant parents in the United States. So this has been clear for over a century what the constitutionality of this is. But the Trump administration's arguments in front of the court, which, as we said earlier, Trump attended these oral arguments as an intimidation tactic, with his date being Pam Bondi, who was just fired. So the date didn't go well. But in this case, they're trying to claim that the 14th Amendment's original intent, yes, was to overturn Dred Scott. But they're saying it was just meant to apply to black people enslaved and freed, or freed at this point, overturning that decision in Dred Scott, but not to immigrants. They're ignoring the subsequent case law that I just mentioned that said that no, this actually does apply. But what's encouraging at the very least is that this is not going over well. The Supreme Court, even the more conservative justices, were immensely skeptical. Here is Neil Gorsuch asking the Solicitor General, John Sauer, if he thinks Native Americans count as birthright citizen or covered under birthright citizenship, just to show how this is really just an argument about ethnic cleansing and has nothing to do with the constitutionality of the claim.
Do you think Native Americans today are birthright citizens under your test and under your friend's test?
I think so. I mean, obviously, they've been granted citizenship by statute.
Put aside the statute. Do you think they're birthright citizens?
No, I think the clear understanding that everybody agrees in the congressional debates is that the children of tribal Indians are not birthright citizens.
I understand that's what they said, but your test is the domicile of the parents, and that would be the test you'd have us apply today, right?
Yes, yes. So if a tribal Indian, for example, gives up allegiance to...
Born today, birthright citizens.
I think so on our test, yeah. If they're lawfully domiciled here.
Okay, and then...
I'm not sure, I have to think that through, but that's my reaction.
I'll take the yes, that's all right. Do you think...
Okay, so Neil Gorsuch has a soft spot for Native American people. It's like one of the only issues he's good on as a conservative.
Right.
Yeah.
When I saw that was my first thought. I was like, does he know who he's talking to? And if he wants to win, he should know the answer to this one.
I'm not arguing a case in front of the Supreme Court, but I know this is a well-known thing. I mean, it's like not knowing that Brett Kavanaugh's into gambling or whatever. I mean, like Neil Gorsuch has made arguments too, trying, at the very least, as a conservative, he's more sympathetic to indigenous rights for some reason than you would expect. How are you not prepared for that, buddy? How are you not prepared for that?
I mean, I think like a lot of things, they just clearly haven't thought very many things through in this administration. This is clearly something aimed at disallowing for the human and civil rights of undocumented immigrants from Latin America and parts of Africa and the Caribbean. And so they've put no thought into any of, not even the edge cases, any other group of people who exist within that kind of like non-white or Black American citizen like standard of being like a new immigrant to the country, just from like Europe, being indigenous, any of that stuff. They just didn't give it any thought, which is not what you want when you go in front of the Supreme Court, you would imagine.
No, it's not. It's not. But here's he was just as prepared seemingly as Senator Ron Johnson, who has become the second dumbest senator that we have after Tommy Tuberville won. Although they're really in a race to the bottom, these two guys. Here he is on Fox Business talking about his disappointment with how the Supreme Court was skeptical of Trump's claim that he can overturn the Constitution via executive order.
The plate. Let's make sure that we can, again, save this country, secure our elections, secure our border. I was disappointed the Supreme Court, the justices there.
I'm sorry, this I'll let it play.
I mean, this is using the Constitution. It's not a suicide pact. And unfortunately, the justices, maybe their ruling will be on the law and on the Constitution, but you have to look at the bigger picture here.
Maybe.
What is happening with China, with the, tourism, birthright citizenship tourism. This is going to destroy this country, creating all these, millions of voters who will obviously not be voting in the best interest of America. So we have to understand exactly what the left is doing, what communist China is doing, and we need to act now to prevent that.
And what the conservative Supreme Court is doing by not overturning the Constitution, which he's calling the Constitution a suicide pact. Look,
it's so hysterical. Like it's so fucking like, get a goddamn grip. Every conservative, and this is the problem with Democrats, like acting like these are partners and we just need common sense border security. They are fucking hysterical lunatic Nazis. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the level of like we've got to save the country. The country is fine. The real problem is that people that pay for your fucking way into Congress are destroying it. It's not immigration. This is ludicrous. The Chinese, what is he talking about? Like, get a grip.
It's great replacement theory. Yeah.
They want you to value the wrong things about the country, ultimately. It's just so funny how nakedly contemptuous they are about like the undeniably good things about America, like the Constitution, which though unevenly applied did have some radical ideas present with it. But they hate that part. The part they liked is when the founding fathers owned slaves. And when they, and that like which is crazy, right? Like it's crazy to define America by like its worst elements and think that everybody else should agree with that when you're, but that's conservative pathology 101 now. Like anything possibly positive about America, no, gotta get rid of that because it's a suicide pact. We have to preserve this like all white, like informal core of like the suburbs.
That's the real suicide pact.
Yeah.
Can we just put this up for a sec? Because we got a funny I am from JR in Philly. Why is Ron Johnson in Larry David's house from Curb? It really does look like just the image. It really looks like the stock house that Larry lives in. But yeah, I mean it's absolutely it's insane. Immigration is the lifeblood of this country. It's why it's the major contributions to culture, to the economy. It's going to need to be immensely, we're going to need to have an overhaul of the way that we view this kind of thing. I mean, the book Border Fascism was really prescient, but even when we were speaking today to our guest, the hardening of borders and the nation state system and tiering citizenship on this front is going to be a major problem as migration is set to rapidly increase due to these horrible wars that we're waging. I mean, over 1 million people displaced in Lebanon. What's that going to do? Mass issues because Israel's deciding to take all of the land in the south of the Litani River. And let alone the climate disasters that are going to be more and more frequent. This last month, the way that we've bombed these like oil facilities too, it's been the hottest month in years. Like the explosion of also chemicals into the atmosphere due to this. Climate change and our militarism are indelibly tied. Abby Martin has a great documentary coming out about this, but this is going to be a real problem, and the right's response is only more brutality.
But like immigration is not like there's no crisis really. Like the individuals that have to flee, say Honduras, because Hillary Clinton didn't want to call a coup, or because they had to flee Venezuela because we wanted to do regime change there. Yeah, those are individual issues. Guess what? We can deal with refugees. Like it's not actually a crisis. This whole thing where we need to save America because immigrants are such a huge issue. We need to talk about it every fucking day because these guys want to have an excuse for why they lose elections and want an excuse for why nobody can afford a house. It's lies. It's not this significant. We don't need to be talking about immigrants this goddamn much.
Well, I mean, the real crisis is the hyper concentration of wealth in the hands of the top like 0.00% of people in America. And immigrants are just a scapegoat that is currently meant to distract from that. But the erosion of their civil rights is just going to be the inevitable erosion of other people's civil rights, because in the minds of the people who want to hyper concentrate that wealth in the hands of like the top, percentile or like percentile of people, like you're no different than they are. Like you want their money the same way they perceive the immigrants wanting their money. And so this is ultimately just to get people on board with like what Emma's saying, a reality that is already occurring, which is like inter and intranational climate refugees, inter and intranational economic refugees in a broad sense, which there's not going to be any difference when people are forced to move from the Southwest to other urban centers as a result of the rolling blackouts and the lack of proper infrastructure there in concert with the climate change than people who are moving from the global south to, the global north in the minds of the people who don't want to give them any resources, because they'll all just be people who need support from a government that wants to put that money into the pockets of Elon Musk or Donald Trump or like Mark Zuckerberg. And to them, a handout is a handout. Doesn't matter the color of it if it's for their money. In their minds, their money.
I mean, we saw this like the Grapes of Wrath Steinbeck talking about Okies and the way that they were greeted when they wanted to immigrate from the center of the country to California. Like that is where this is all headed. And people that think that they're protected from it because they have the right skin color are deluded.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Teacher Dan, is Matt the only one that can do a pretty respectable Dave Rubin impersonation because his normal speaking voice comes pretty close? Whoa. That is so rude, and I do not agree.
Started as a compliment, ended horribly.
Yes, Matt, you're not very nasally. You have a deeper voice.
I talk like this.
Yeah, Dave is pretty nasally. Radical Chrislam says, you guys missed this, but Dave Rubin referred to the...
No, we played this, I think, when you were out. Was this
No,
yesterday?
I was there. I was there, but these guys didn't see... Like, you're just going to laugh. We played Dave Rubin talking to Jillian Michaels and Dr. Drew, and...
Oh, yeah, they had that show.
His actual friends from the Actual Friends podcast.
And it ended with him... Because she was criticizing Viktor Orban's Christian nationalism for being anti-gay, and like Dave was really upset because he had just gone back from visiting Orban, and it was getting in the way of him.
On the Hungarian government's dime, more than likely.
Yes, getting in the way of him obscuring his sexuality from his audience, and so he was like, "Oh no, actually, we can put these two things together." The Christian nationalist, so he refers, it's like Tucker and Fuentes, so he and radical Islam are together. Radical Chrislam, and basically it's that they're anti-Israel.
I've been hearing this a lot, actually. Roseanne was saying the exact same thing on her show.
Roseanne was also on Actual Friends 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
whoa!
really?
I thought she was just having like a stroke because she was like, yeah, like radical Chrislam stands in like so like for her, radical Chrislam is in stark opposition to Judeo-Christian values. Mm-hmm. It's like the yin to their yang.
Right. That's exactly right. Dmitry Medvedev, American exports amazing culture like Christopher Nolan movies, Taylor Swift, and the Keytar. Christopher Nolan is British. Yeah. So we can't even, but I guess this is there. He's saying that to mess with me because I'm not a big Nolan fan nor a Taylor Swift fan. Leftist cowgirl, not giving any thought to edge cases is exactly why conservative anti-trans policies fall apart too. Republicans are actually delusional. Leftist cowgirl, Trump thinks the Dred Scott decision was only about one particular group of people. Sounds like DEI to me.
Oh, wow, Roseanne is an official co-host of Actual Friends now.
Whoa.
What?
College board, early high school. I wonder when Mamdani and his new chancellor, what Mamdani's new chancellor is focusing on now for our schools and teachers. Dave from Jamaica, LOL, China has a 50-year plan to have kids in the USA and then vote for Dems. Yeah, their plans are measured in centuries.
Like, honestly, it's like crazy that how hysterical Chicken Little that shit is.
I know. Mind pillow guy Matt like is exactly right. Far-right federal and state voter officials in Arkansas got exactly what they wanted and had a months-long investigation into non-citizens voting illegally in the state. They combed through 1.8 million people registered to vote in the state and found 2 instances.
Yeah, it's horseshit.
Tempe from Maryland, you guys should try to find as many progressive challenges from Democratic primaries across the country as you can to amplify their platforms. We need an FDR-style takeover like right now. We're doing our best. We're doing our best.
Sometimes you do
and
that.
I spent my Saturday doing that for like 6 hours as well.
And sometimes you get a little bit too excited and you have somebody who turns out to be insane.
John
like
Fetterman.
Tim Canova.
Oh, you guys had Tim Canova on?
When he was challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah, you know, I was down there covering that campaign a little with TYT, and you could tell even then he was pretty insane.
Yeah, so you got to kick the tires a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. But there are like the slate of candidates this cycle of progressive challenges is way better than what we were seeing back then. Like there's a lot of good people.
And if anything's going to do it, it's going to be less about media, which I don't want to discount. We have an important role to play, but it'll be more organizations like Local Progress or, in my preference, DSA.
How could you be giving yourself not giving yourself credit over DSA?
They're the most important thing.
It's all media.
Could take a bow every now and then for whatever.
No.
And I'll be starting my new PAC, Matt PAC, where I'm going to be raising lots of money and paying myself a salary to save this country.
And the chair of your PAC is Brianna Wu.
Look, got to be able to have disagreements with people.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it's like, whatever. DSA organizing is what has made like the major difference in this state. It's not podcasts. We're not that important, and we could be replaced tomorrow. And we should always remember that.
The revolution will not be live streamed.
No. Okay, so this is going to be really fun. Adam Sosnick, who you might
Oh, Adam.
I can't wait. This is I heard about this, but I think I'm the only one on this show right now who hasn't seen this.
I haven't seen it either. I've heard a recap of how badly this went. Like apparently he humiliated himself on Piers Morgan in a debate with Dave Smith. This is the guy that threw a tampon at Anna Kasparian, right?
Yes.
Over Israel or women's rights?
He was calling her hysterical.
Oh, right.
Maybe it's, I don't know.
A dumb bitch. I mean, that's how you guys treat me all the time, right? And I have to put up with it to be a nice lady that's okay around other men.
There's actually a net off screen that catches all the tampons and Brian.
Like over the occupied West Bank where they have those nets to catch trash.
I was gonna think of like the foul ball at baseball, but you know. West Bank.
Of course, I'm victimizing myself like a true soft woman. Yeah. So his take on Piers Morgan didn't go so well. Dave Smith. We'll play just some excerpts.
He doesn't even have a take.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Okay.
But let's just give you a little bit of the highlights of three here, real quick ones here. Here's the kind of the main one, which is about this thing that Adam Sosnick or that Dave Smith said, which is accusing America and Israel of terrorism, which is subjectively true. It's really tough for people on the right to hear that because it's coded as like, oh, you hate America, as opposed to saying you don't want America to be doing war crimes in your name,
right?
Because they're all infantile little boys that need a daddy. But Dave Smith said that, Ben Shapiro had a problem with it, and Adam Sosnick also had a problem with him saying this. So here's just a little bit to kind of get into it here.
This is why you call the U.S. military the greatest terrorist organization on earth, right? Because you're a true American? Because you're a true patriot? Is that why, Dave? Because something tells me you have what is known as clickbait of the mouth. And you're using these instances, these wars, to garner attention for you. You have the American flag behind you, yet you have the hypocrisy of saying the United States military, United States is the greatest terror organization the world has ever seen. I mean, I don't understand what's going on here. This is why you're radical.
I didn't say
by
the
way,
world.
radical. This is why.
Okay, there's one. Here is where Dave sort of goes on the offensive here.
Oh.
And if you want to keep doing this, buddy, you could tell me to check the scoreboard. I'll run circles around you on this, dude. Check the scoreboard. Most unpopular war in American history going in. Check the scoreboard. 13 dead Americans and 150 plus other wounded. Thousands of innocents, including little schoolgirls in Iran, killed.
Thank you,
dead
Dave.
Innocent Israelis. Hundreds of dead innocent people in Lebanon. Millions of innocent people being displaced, all at the cost of tens of billions of dollars and destroying Trump's coalition. Check your scoreboard, Adam. How's it looking for you? And if you want...
Not looking great. And one more highlight here before we get into how PBD reacted to his employees' poor performance.
This kind of really drives it home. Adam basically had to pull out another debate where Dave did worse in to try to say like, well, you didn't beat this guy.
Remember this?
Perfect. Perfect. That's this guy right
Oh,
here.
no.
Just in case, if the
Okay.
camera doesn't see.
But what is the point you're making?
I watched this podcast. The point is this: Dave gets out there and he tries to bully people and say that he's so smart. He reads a lot of books. Good for you, Dave.
Okay, yeah. So now, look, I appreciate. I'm not a huge Dave Smith fan. I do appreciate his new line. Well, not a new line, but at least holding the line on consistency of being anti-war, as Trump has proven to be exactly what Dave was telling everyone he wasn't going to be.
Yeah, I mean that. Like again, the good that he's being critical now. What we were saying about his belief that Trump would be more anti-war than Kamala Harris has been proven completely.
Or just like there's a coalitional problem here with the Republican Party. There's absolutely no appetite to be genuinely anti-war on that side of things, and this shows in the polling, which is that most of MAGA is completely on board with whether it's Agrabah or Iran invading.
I just don't want to blow by him saying that bullying is defined by reading books. It's an
That's why I
important part. Matt's always bullying me with book recommendations.
It's literally saying like you are hurting me emotionally by being smarter and more well-read than me.
I just do have to say, as embarrassing as that all was, what PBD does is infinitely more embarrassing. So if you felt like that was embarrassing, trigger warning, because you're going to like implode on yourself with cringe.
How is it possible that you allow yourself to be spoken to this way by your boss?
That is the defining question of what we're about to see here, because actually they're not alphas. They're all in a hierarchy, and they're willing to be little cogs that sit down and take a lecture from daddy. Like this is like coming home and like my parents found out I've been skipping class.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the right-wing alpha male. All of the alpha that follow Trump, the big daddy. Oh, I'm be so obsequious. Oh, big boss man, I'll be so obsequious. And they try to lecture everybody else on masculinity. Buddy, stand up for yourself. Does he stand up for himself?
No, and this is I will say this is the very first segment of the PBD podcast.
Opened the show with a humiliation ritual,
and in fact said they later pushed other stuff back so they could get to it first.
Little house cleaning up top.
Millionaire from Miami, incredible quality. If you want to find out more about
just skip to the ad.
Said that, let's get right into it. Opening topic that I want to address with you guys is this. Adam, you were on the Dave Smith. You and Dave Smith did a debate together on what do you call it? On Piers Morgan. I think that's the first time you were ever on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the market has responded, and they've been saying their thoughts on how.
Yeah, just to decode this for everyone, when he says the market, he means
YouTube
their
comments.
audience. Yeah.
Everyone.
What went, what you did, what was said. Davis retweeted and said something about this is the end of Adam funeral. He made some comments that went viral. You've responded. You made some videos at him as well. But I just want to kind of because a lot of times from the audience, you have to know how this works. The audience sits there and watches and says, I know for a fact Pat prepped him and the team prepped him and this and this and that, and they don't know what happens. I want you to share with us, because the audience is curious. They're asking me, what is your impression on how you did on the debate with Dave Smith?
So I just want to highlight him saying, people think that I prepped you. And I just want to say up top, that is not how this happened.
I distance myself from your performance.
Disowning.
Now, why don't you tell me how you did?
Yeah. How do you think you did?
What is your impression on how you did on the debate with Dave Smith?
Well, despite what you think, I haven't listened or watched any of the internet comments. Zero. I don't go onto Twitter. I don't check the comments. It's just not something that I do. Some people are messaging me on my neck. What do you think? I don't know. People are saying stuff, and I'm listening to a song called "Ain't Nothing Gonna Break a My Stride, Ain't Nothing Gonna Slow Me Down," and that's how I feel about this. So they.
I didn't hear that part.
You're gonna go on Piers Morgan. Sure, I think Tom was maybe gonna do it. Tom wasn't able to do it. They called me up. I said, sure, I'll debate Dave Smith. Listen, there's no doubt that Dave Smith is smart or wise or well-read.
Yeah.
The same thing could be said about when you debated a
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Can we go back a little bit?
I can't get over the little break for singing.
Oh yeah, no. It only gets
it's
worse
self-soothing.
It only gets worse from here, but you should really pay attention to this part that comes up because it's directly contradictory to itself. It's really quite weird.
Can we go back to the song?
I gotta hear it again.
To a song called "Ain't Nothing Gonna Break My Stride, Ain't Nothing Gonna Slow Me Down," and that's how I feel about this. So they told me last minute, "Hey, you're gonna go on Piers Morgan." Sure, I think Tom was maybe gonna do it. Tom wasn't able to do it. They called me up. I said, "Sure, I'll debate Dave Smith." Yeah. Listen, there's no doubt that Dave Smith is smart or wise or well-read.
Well-read.
The same thing could be said about when you debated a room full of 20 communists on Jubilee. They were all very smart. I was very impressed by all these people. But just because you're smart doesn't mean you're wise. Now, do I think Dave Smith is smart and capable?
He just called him wise.
Yeah, he did call him wise.
That's what I meant. He just called him wise. So, like, he's lost the plot on this one. He's spiraling. This is.
But he didn't read the comments.
No.
Do I think he's funny? No. Do I think he's right? Definitely not.
I'm asking you, how do you think you did?
I think I did fine. My intention wasn't to play nice. So I went on Piers Morgan. I don't really have.
It's not the being mean that people have a problem with. In fact, Dave was meaner to you.
Plans on going on Piers Morgan every single day. That's not my thing. It's a food fight every single day. Respect to Piers Morgan. I wanted to make some waves. That was my methodology. I could be right. I could be wrong. I don't care.
Okay, so
the problem is
you
this.
said you don't care?
No, meaning like I don't care what the market thinks of me.
Yeah.
I know what I believe. I know who
Hold
I am.
on.
I know what I
That's
say.
the worst thing you could say to PBD.
Yeah, that's bad to say.
That's his god.
This is
The
like if I
market.
came into the office and I said, I don't care about Social Security.
If I went into confession and said, I don't care what Christ thinks. You know?
I stand for what America stands for. Dave Smith, what pissed me off, he continues to say that America is the greatest terror.
Okay, so he's just going. We're gonna skip a little bit ahead here because he basically just needs the fainting coach because Dave Smith accused America of something that it's doing, which is terroristic violence on the rest of the world. Which is anybody familiar with the history of our foreign policy would know. I mean, look at Vietnam. Google Zippo squads for what that means. But let's just skip a little bit here where PBD starts. He ends this little soliloquy and PBD gets in on him.
He might be on a podcast or even on Joe Rogan's for that matter. People don't support this guy. I support our troops. I support America. I support our allies.
I think Joe's had him on 20, 30 times.
Irrelevant.
No, it's not irrelevant. So ask, whether you agree with the guy or not, Joe likes Dave, right? So the question you got to ask yourself is, from my perspective, there is issues, there is approach, there is what's next for you. When I look at everybody in the marketplace, including myself, everybody in a marketplace.
I'll say anybody who has a boss, if your boss starts saying what's next for you, and you are thinking, am I getting fired here?
Place, including myself. I leave and I say, okay, how am I recreating myself for this next phase?
Oh my God.
What areas do I have where it's a leak for me? What habits do I have that I need to pay attention to? When we started building an insurance company, yesterday I had Lee Strobel on. We had a great conversation together.
Let me just zip a little bit.
So
He tells one of these old man stories.
Right, but is he basically soft launching him, firing him on air?
It feels like that,
sure.
Yeah. This is like this is like a theme in American culture too. It's in reality TV, but like probably launched by Trump with the Apprentice thing.
You're fired.
The whole the fetishization, the thing that there's a certain kind of audience that gets off on seeing somebody else humiliated by their boss. Because it's like they get to imagine themselves in the power position when they're actually the Adam Sosnick.
Bar Rescue also in that.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is very Apprentice coded, especially in like the hyper performative, like fake CEO stuff that they're always doing. Like how their previous set, they had like PBD sitting in the big chair and they were all sitting in like the tiny chairs. Like the PBD show is like one of those shows that is entirely run on fake LinkedIn posts about like how to be an effective boss. Like the power, like what's the book called?
Right, or the
Laws of Power or whatever.
The Laws of Power.
Right.
Like,
That's all an extension though of like the at least here in America, the societal like groupthink that like, oh, successful business owners are really smart. They're the smartest people alive because that must be why they're successful or why they make money. And so we must listen to everything they have to say. So if you hear one of these guys berating one of their employees, yeah, there's exactly what you all just said too. But there's also that idea of he's got to know what he's talking about. He's a successful business owner.
Yeah,
So
it's where quickly. It's just where Christianity and evangelicalism and the prosperity gospel intersects, and why that's Trump's base of support too, which is like the outsourcing of kind of one's thinking to this omniscient person who can be the decider for you and is the strong person to follow. It's like a similarly religious construction.
Why Islam was so smart, saying you can't represent Muhammad.
Yeah, exactly right.
They were cooking with that one.
Exactly right. All right.
So we're gonna skip this weird thing where PBE talks about church pastors that were hooking up with members of the parish. I still haven't decoded what that was meant to convey, but we're gonna skip after that.
God, like some pastors actually become godlike because of how much the church fears him, and they liked anyways. They go through this. I said, okay, how do we want to build this company? It's very hard. So you gotta think about ways to improve. I'm asking you. The argument is one end, because I don't know if you focused on making I've seen you make better arguments with Bassem Youssef than you did with Dave Smith. I didn't see you making arguments on Dave Smith. And the reason why I'm doing this with you openly, and I'm talking to you openly with you, is there's an element of also representing where you're coming from, where the expectation is, hey, when you go and be professionals, that's not how I handle debates. I don't handle debates that way. That's not my MO. So if you're close to me and you're handling it that way, that is not my style. I don't do stuff like that. And Dave and I don't even agree on some of these issues. But if I'm having a conversation, it's about what is this next phase. And by the way, the reason why I'm having this direct feedback with you publicly is for the following reason.
Humiliation.
This is how I roll at them.
Clicks.
I will give you private feedback and have your back 100%. I've always been like that. This is why my guys like working
This part's
with me,
crazy.
and they
This
know
part's
how
crazy.
tough it is at times.
Crazy.
So,
I'll have
like,
your back in private.
No, this part is crazy because here's the part where you find out that this is the second time he's had to talk to Adam about this. Like the first time was private. This is his like formal write-up.
Oh, was the first time when he threw a tampon at Anna Casper?
No, that wasn't it. The first time. Well, I mean, I can let him tell you.
Okay.
I will give you private feedback and have your back 100%. I've always been like that. This is why my guys like working with me, and they know how tough it is at times because I'm always challenging them. But if my private feedback that I'm giving doesn't land, and it feels like you have immunity to go run around and say whatever you want and keep saying, I don't give a shit what people say, I do. There's an approach to take about this game. I don't care that we have differences in debates. We push each other here and we have arguments and, comment, I side with Vinny today. You know what? Today, actually, I side with Adam. There was a couple moments where you had a couple clips where like they sided with you.
Couple times
I think Adam's the point today. And I'm like, oh, okay, Adam had a point. And then, hey, Tom, no, I'm siding with Tom today. Pat, you were off today. No problem. But it's recreating for the next phase of what is that next phase for you. And that's a very important thing for you to be thinking about. I've had that conversation with him, recreating himself. I've had the conversation with him.
That's why he's in a suit?
I have the conversation openly with me on what I need to recreate. But for me, when I saw that, I'm like, you brought up another guy from the past that beat Dave. Great. You brought up, no, there needs to be the Adam that I've seen debate that is prepared. He actually would have made some real good points there.
Oh,
and
my God.
By the way, you've been a moderator for Zero Hedge with Dave Smith and what do you call it? Laura Loomer, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what you did? Didn't you moderate? Yeah.
She did it.
And that was a pretty good job you did as a moderator. So, I don't know. I'm saying this publicly to say this next phase requires all of us to recreate ourselves, and that includes you in a big way. And I've said this privately 8 weeks ago, 9 weeks ago at that dinner place we went to, and I was very direct with you.
Dinner place,
but
not a restaurant.
You're cornering me to have to say this publicly to you right now. And you have to make a decision on what you want to do with this
Look
next
what
phase.
you made me do.
You got to recreate
Forcing
yourself.
me.
It's a very important thing. I'm being very respectful to you. And you had no idea that I'm going to go here this morning. You had no clue. And by the way, I intentionally changed today's business podcast to do this because obviously Monday I couldn't be here. We had certain things that was going on. This weekend I had, what do you call it?
SLS.
SLS. Sean Hannity did it last Friday, so I changed everything, and Rob and I, we had to talk about it yesterday and calendar to do it this way. But for me, sometimes, when people say, I don't care, 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 and sometimes this is like the Trump effect. Well, Trump doesn't care. Well, Trump doesn't give a shit. Well, Trump doesn't do this. Well, contrary to popular belief, Trump looks at every poll. Trump listens to every comment. Trump listens to every criticism.
Delusional, of
so
course.
what you think that Trump does, I'm not telling you go read the comments the next day and go through all chat. I don't recommend that at all. But I do believe a little bit of criticism to see, well, maybe there's a little bit of credibility there. There's a little bit of value there for me to receive. How can I receive this and recreate myself? Because if you're not too careful,
Look at him
Adam,
disassociate.
and I'll open it up to you guys if you want to say
He's gonna
anything. I'll
cry.
give you the final thoughts, and then I'm going to get on the
he's
next story.
shamed.
But I wanted to open up with us, get right into it.
Play with that iPad,
Is the following.
baby.
There is no April Fool's jokes today. I don't have one.
This is not a
You
joke.
should have been like, you're looking at the April Fool's joke right here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's
Crazy.
so funny that apparently he brought up like a prior debate that what's his name, Dave Smith did that
Coleman
I
Hughes,
guess
apparently.
didn't go so well his way. If Dave Smith wants to play that game, he can just play this fucking video of Adam's boss absolutely berating him for his debate performance.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Again, like I was just trying to imagine if Sam did this to
On
me
air?
on air, and I can tell the audience what would happen is you would hear the door slam in the background, and I would never be in this room again.
Emma, you was on CNN. You was on CNN last night. How do you think you did?
I don't read the comments.
Well, I do.
Well, you should see if there's some credibility there, because we need to, in our next phase, we need to all be recreating ourselves, and that's a big deal for you especially.
I think that's why Vinny wears three-piece suits now, because he said I had to have a talk with him, and he pointed to Vinny to reinvent himself, and now Vinny's dressed like a Peaky Blinder
Yeah.
on the show.
What is Adam's next phase?
I don't know. They're gonna put him on her take. They're gonna have him replace Jillian Michaels if he's not careful. But that's like a
That would
slow
be the
fade
most-
out of the entire brand.
That would be so humiliating for him. We'll put you in the women's corner here.
Yeah, no, he's on his way out. And this
He's
is, I mean,
out.
I've been watching the PBD show for a while. Like, Adam's fall off has been like very rapid. And I wouldn't say it, for me, seems to have started when he started defending Trump on the Epstein stuff. When he started like defending Trump on the Epstein stuff, when he started saying that, like, you don't need to pay attention to this. It's silly. What are we going to do about it? That's when he just started to seem to really fall off in PBD's eyes. And now that he's like just constantly running interference for AIPAC, like the comments are just not feeling him either.
Have you seen how Ben Shapiro's views have completely tanked as well?
Yeah,
Like,
Matt and I
I
were
mean,
talking about this.
the-
Israel's just concrete socks for everybody now.
Good.
Yeah. No, I agree.
The thing is,
Yeah.
though, I don't
No,
think
I
it's.
know.
I mean, obviously, I think the Israel plays a huge part in a lot of these guys falling off. But I think the broader thing is that I think it just shows you how untalented, unknowledgeable. Just you don't need, or you didn't need anything to be one of these right-wing or Trump-supporting commentators, influencers, whatever. Because it was just so easy to do when the purpose was to simply support the guy, right? But now that it takes just a little bit of critical thinking to say, I support the guy, but not on this thing. They don't, like 99% of these guys don't even have the knowledge to do that. And I'm not even saying because they need to have that knowledge because like they suddenly something like hit their moral radar. No, they just needed the knowledge to say this is something I don't support Trump on, so they don't lose their own viewer base, because that's all they care about. And there is a abundance of guys who are so brainless and dumb that they don't even have this baseline knowledge of, oh, I need to actually think and then not just go with, I support Trump on this because he is Trump and I support him on everything, to not lose their own audience. And I think PBD maybe just woke up to, oh, that's what this Adam guy was, because I have the knowledge of what I need to go to follow the winds of my my viewership, the winds of change with my viewership.
You mean the marketplace?
Right.
What's fascinating about this, though, is like how I can tell it's going to drive Adam Sosnick like literally insane, because when he's saying the American people aren't with Dave Smith, they're with me. I support the troops. I support Trump. There is polling to show that like the right wing in general is still completely with Trump, but it's not the right wing that watches YouTube. The comments are crazily like pro Vinny and anti Adam anytime they have a disagreement about, say, the war in Iran or Epstein.
Well, this is a dynamic that I'm really trying to get people to hone in on a bit. Is like the self-identified independents it's the largest growing political bloc of the three, of Democrat versus Republican. Like independents, especially among Gen Z and millennial, who would be the folks that are more likely to be watching. And so, yeah, you've only seen a 10-point dip in Republican support for the state of Israel since the beginning of the genocide, for example. I still think that's fairly significant. I mean, it's like 70% from 80% now. I can't remember off the top of my head, but for Republicans, okay, whoa. But it's going to be for anybody that's 35 and younger, 40 and younger, who's watching stuff on YouTube more disproportionately. They might be right-wingers, like really right-wingers, but may not want to identify as Republican. So that's where their bread is buttered, and those are the people that they're losing.
And also, even amongst the people who support the war in Iran, specific elements about the war in Iran, they might not support. And so, like, some of the PBD boys have shown willingness to, like, put boots on the ground in places like Karg Island or Kashem. And even amongst, like, GOP, like self-identifying GOP members, they do not support, like, a ground invasion of Karg Island. They might support nebulous bombing. They might support going in for nuclear weapons. But just like today, Fox News poll, like not today, but yesterday, Harry Enton was reporting on it. Fox News poll, only 1 in 5 GOP, self-identifying GOP members support like an invasion of Karg Island. And so, you know, that's just going to peel people off. Like there can be this nebulous support for like imperialism or for like the American project, but when blood is actually on the line, I think a lot of people, we're still in the, you know, the shadow of the Iraq war, and Trump won. Trump won the election in 2016 on many issues, but it was like leveraging dissatisfaction against the Iraq war. So he made that okay within his party, and it's going to, you know, bite him in the butt. But I guess speaking of Trump, if he does get fired from the PBD show, there's a non-zero chance that like Adam Sosnick becomes like what the new
Attorney General?
Yeah, like they might replace Pam Bondi. Like he is like a Trump looking guy. Like Trump likes him with the slick back hair. He likes him like big and braggadocious. Like why can't he be like the next Pete Hegseth? Like Pete Hegseth is dumbass a bag of hammers too. So
I mean, speaking of what you just mentioned and Pete Hegseth, Brandon, I mean, you can see exactly the situation you described play out in real time over just the past day or two with all these Trump supporting like Iranian influencers on social media who are all, you know, doing TikTok dances and cheering on Trump when he invaded Iran. And now they see Pete Hegseth tweeting out how we're going to send the Iranian people back to the Stone Age or whatever. And now all of a sudden they're like, whoa, wait a minute. But we don't support this anymore. Like what? Like, yeah.
Right. All right, guys, gonna read some IMs and then we'll get out of here. Jordy, PhD. Brian has a great PBD voice. I'm also getting real jank vibes in this too, in terms of his voice.
Personality.
Maybe, yeah.
PBD and jank kind of, I could see that.
Sir Dunk the Tall says, if I was Adam, I would quit if my boss treated me this way. This is insane. It's like a struggle session.
No, it's literally like something you would expect to see behind closed doors at a cult.
Yeah.
Well, also, you should wait to get fired so you can get unemployment. Don't quit just because your like boss is like 100%. Demoralizing you. Like
just
wait to get fired.
Headphones in when he's talking about it.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to make you do. You gotta, you gotta stick it out.
Get the severance.
It pretty crazy. He didn't say anything, not even any. He just took it. He just took it and tried, like you said, Emma, tried to dissociate, like showing on air that he doesn't even have he can't even say anything to his own boss to defend himself. That was pitiful.
And the human centipede aspect of it, of him just shitting into Sosnick, and then all of a sudden he cucks out to Trump in the middle of the rant.
Of course.
Just by being, he looks at everything. Just disgusting.
He's a extremely petty narcissist. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the sadomasochistic relationship that people like fetishize when they are this kind of like capitalist in their own opinion. Like, you have to take all this trash from the person on top of you. You have to be delusional to the CEO or to your manager. And the trade-off is that you get to treat the person under you like garbage. You get to outsource that and perform that same success by being terrible to your underling. And then, if you're at the lower level of a corporation, you get to rent that in the form of like a gig worker. You get to be terrible to the gig worker. And so, we've recreated this system at various levels throughout our society. It's so disgusting.
Yep. Tater Tot, please clip Adam humming that song. I'm sure.
No, it wasn't a hum. He full blown sang it with lyrics and everything.
But not a lot of confidence behind. Like, he didn't belt it out. Thankfully.
Yeah.
Thankfully. I mean, there's really nothing more uncomfortable than somebody singing or playing the guitar in a really intimate setting.
I love him, his eyes watering, trying to like distract himself from the embarrassing debate and playing that song out loud. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, 5 more. Mr. Fun, Trump's speech last night began with him claiming no one had ever sent a rocket to the moon before. He almost certainly watched the 1969 moon landing live. Interesting. Ad hominem, please don't say MR can be replaced. The show is a consistent source of grounded opinion for years now and has helped me feel like I'm not insane with everything going on in the world. I didn't mean MR. I just mean, I don't know. I just... The media personalities that place their importance over like organizing is very annoying to me.
It's useful for I do think it's like bad political education to. First of all, like, media does have a political role. Like, Karl Marx was a pamphleteer and all that sort of stuff, right? But I do think people can be a little bit too passive and become an audience member when they should be an activist. And I also think there's people in our business who, for marketing purposes, like to inflate their importance to the ongoing struggle in ways that is massively unhelpful.
Yep.
And it turns people into, again, just spectators.
Feeling called out right now, Matt.
Yeah, it's those people over at Doomed.
Cole from Little Rock, I don't know, been treated like that by a boss, yet it wasn't in public. I do understand how you aren't able to stand up for yourself when someone you respect is doing that to you. I guess. You don't call yourself an alpha male now.
Doing it in public is crazy.
MPG, Gianna Moroni would have had more executive function than to start singing in that situation. And the final I am of the day. El Conipcion. This show said I was mistaken that Vinny and not Adam had a failed comedy career, but Adam absolutely did comedy. Hassan has watched it, his reel on stream. Find it.
Sosnick?
Yeah.
Oh.
No. I know that Vinny's a comedian.
Now I think before we go, we should play... Oh, but it's already 2:30. All right. But
yeah.
I want to hear like even a minute of it right now. 30 seconds of it right now.
We found Vinny's, which I think was on like...
Vinny's like still doing it.
Vinny looked a lot different.
Yeah, he did Def Jam.
A little bit different styling than the 3-piece suit with like the, I don't know, is that a pocket watch across the lapel?
Yeah.
He's everything about his Def Jam set is racist too, but the fact that he keeps referring to himself as Middle Eastern, it's just like he probably is like, you guys don't know what country I'm actually talking about.
All right, well, that's amazing. We will check it out soon. Appreciate you all. Matt Binder, Brandon, Matt Leck, Brian, thanks so much for the great show today. We will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. The months drifted into years, while I shifted in and